Welcome to the Catwalk and Merry Christmas, everyone. I would be your host, Jay Whitlow, missional entrepreneur and storyteller. For over the past 20 years, I have served from the oil field to the mission field with a lot of stops in between, hanging out with some top leaders and professionals through a variety of industries. Today, I sit behind this mic on a personal journey to share stories from people right here in the Permian Basin. Each week, you will hear from some heavy-hitting leaders and entrepreneurs about their biggest wins, heartbreaking losses, and even some of life's little secrets. One thing I've learned is that storytelling is powerful, and behind every person is a story to tell. So join me as I dive in to today's conversation here on the Catwalk.
From the PCC studios in Midland, it's the Catwalk, presented by Performance Chemical. Conversations connecting with industry executives, community leaders, nonprofit organizations, and social entrepreneurs.
The Catwalk is presented by Performance Chemical. At Performance Chemical Company, they understand a chemical service provider can offer so much more than just quality products. To add true value to their programs, the focus is on consistent service, taking pride in the ability to provide the highest end of service to each customer. Reach out to Performance Chemical today at perf-chem.com. Well, I am so glad that you guys have joined with us today. Would you give a big Merry Christmas welcome to my guest today? This is Santa Claus. This is the biggest day of my life right now. I have Santa sitting at my table. How are you, Santa?
I'm doing well, Jay. Thanks for asking.
Thank you for knowing my name, too.
Absolutely. Well, you spent some time on the nice list. I know there were a couple years there that you kind of bounced back and forth, but
let's not talk about those years because you know them very well, I'm sure. So just a couple questions that I have on my head that I want to know about you.
Sure.
Is who would play a movie about you?
Who would play a movie about me?
About Santa.
Well, have you ever heard of Tim Allen?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Santa Claus.
There it is.
Yeah.
There it
so
is.
he would play a movie about you.
You know, he's about as real as they come there, Jay.
Does he do a good job?
He does a great job.
He does. Okay.
Sets the bar really high, you know.
He does. What Christmas carol about you do you not like?
Oh, gosh. What Christmas carol do I not like? Probably, you know what? I'm actually going to go with I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus.
Really?
Yeah.
Whose mommy was it?
I think that's the problem.
Do you know?
No, I don't. I don't know. I'm not quite sure, but I know that there were a lot of crying kids about that song over the years.
I bet there is. Okay, one more question, and then I want to hear some great stories about you, Santa. Okay, settle this for me because there's probably a lot of people who argue about this every Christmas season.
Sure.
You probably have people write to you about this all the time. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
You know, I just got asked that the other day, Jay, and my gut answer is yes. It is a Christmas movie. Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely.
Hot day.
You like that over there, do you,
Right.
Chris?
No.
Yeah.
Straight from Mr. Claus himself.
Wow.
That doesn't mean you can't enjoy it the remainder of the year, but come on. I mean, there's just some classic moments there.
Yeah, I guess so.
I can't say I'm on the air, but you know.
Well, so you got to
true.
think about it.
Yeah.
First off, Die Hard could not have happened if it wasn't for Christmas.
Okay.
Because the Christmas party, Hans Gruber planned everything around the
Okay,
Christmas party
yeah.
because the building would have been empty.
Right. That makes
Could not
sense.
have happened if it wasn't for Christmas.
That's a good point. That's a good point. But I just don't know if it's a Christmas movie like Elf is a Christmas movie. So what do you think about Elf?
I mean, I love Elf.
That's a great
Best
movie.
way to spread Christmas cheer is by singing loud for all to hear.
Do you, Santa, have a good singing voice?
I mean, I don't want to say yes, but I've carried a tune or two.
Could you sing something for us?
What would you like me to sing?
What? Just belt something out about yourself.
I'll be home for Christmas.
I love it. Now, is it true that Santa will only eat milk and cookies?
You know, that is a common misconception. While I do enjoy milk and cookies, there is no doubt about that. In fact, I encourage children to leave those out for me. If I were choosing a meal, Jay, it would probably be Chick-fil-A. Something
Really?
from Chick-fil-A. Absolutely.
Well, we provided some tea for you there.
I don't
from
think that's a
Chick-fil-A.
coincidence either.
It's not a coincidence.
No.
What's your go-to meal then, Santa?
Well, you know, I like to keep it kind of kind of moving all the time, and I don't like to get into a rut because I do eat there so often. But if I were, if I'm just eating to eat and need to grab something, I'm going to grab some nuggets, fries, and a sweet tea.
Well, you know what? This is your lucky day.
Oh, you brought some,
Because
huh?
I have a 12 count with fries,
All right.
Chick-fil-A sauce.
Yep.
That's yours.
Now you're speaking my language, Jay.
I've got mine. So why don't we just, as we kind of get to hear some Christmas stories from
right.
you, let's just go ahead and have some Chick-fil-A. So,
I'm here for it.
Santa, tell us some fun stories
So fun
that have happened
stories.
to you, maybe like at the mall or some kid in your lap. So I mean, some kid peed on you or anything like
As
that?
far as I know, Jay, I've been doing this for a lot of years. As far as I know, me personally, I have never been wet on by a child.
Really?
Now-
what about an adult?
Oh,
You said child.
no, I fortunately not there.
Did I have Santa there? Did I just,
Yeah.
just got Santa?
I do think that now there have been some times where we've been in a photo shoot and someone has said, "Is that chocolate or is that
No.
poop?" And
Are you serious?
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And now I will say that I have been handed children that have not been cleaned up. They're standing in line for a long time. I
Yeah.
get it. You're a parent. You're tired.
You don't wanna
get
give
to the
up your
front of the line,
space,
and
yeah.
your child goes to the bathroom in their
Right.
diaper right before. You don't want to give up your space. Not saying that I judged you. Also, not saying I didn't judge you.
You did both.
There was a little,
Yeah.
maybe a little of both, But I understand that it gets, kind of last. You get in that position.
Right.
I think, Jay, probably some of the funniest stories that have happened to me over the years as Santa typically involve adults and some of the things they might say or they do say.
Really?
That can
you share any of that? This is a family-friendly show, so can you share any?
family-friendly.
Can you push that?
I
Say blue line or is it red line?
I think red line is the correct term.
Okay.
I think that there I've had a few ladies over the years say, "Santa, I think I need to sit on your lap because I've been naughty this year." And that's when I really get
What
those
does
rosy
Mrs.
red
Claus-
cheeks.
What does Mrs. Claus say
Mrs.
about
Claus
that?
is not amused.
all.
Not amused at all.
Has she
no.
met any of these ladies in line?
Um,
Give them that stare?
yeah, she usually moves them straight to the naughty list there, Jay.
I bet she does. Okay, one more story. You got another one? While you're having your French fries?
Yeah, I'll tell you this one. So I'm out, and this is recently.
Yeah.
I'm out in my gear, making appearances, and been asked to stop by a party at a local watering hole
Oh,
here in the West Texas area.
like ranch water?
Hole?
Yeah.
Yeah. And had a young lady who had quite a few ranch waters walk up
Okay.
to me.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh-oh.
yeah.
Chris, get the dump buddy ready.
And I can tell she wants a picture, right? Like I can always
Oh, I
tell.
bet
hey,
she
you know,
does.
I get it. Like,
Yeah.
hey, you're getting to meet the big guy himself. You want a picture?
Sure.
So I look at her. I say, hey, you want a picture? And she goes, yeah. She's like, my friends are being kind of weird. And so I wave at her friends. I say, hey, come on over here and let's take a picture, right?
Oh, my goodness.
So we take a picture. Everything's good. And her friends walk away, and she kind of lingers. It's kind of, hey, Santa, and
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, how you doing? And she's like, Santa, I just love Christmas. And I'm like, well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
I
you
love
should,
Christmas.
yeah.
I am Christmas,
Yeah.
And
I am Christmas.
she definitely, she said, yeah, Santa, you should come see my Christmas tree. I said, you know what? I'm going to head back to the North Pole. Mrs. Claus is waiting on me right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna go see a different kind of Christmas
That's right.
tree. So, yeah, awesome. Okay, Christmas Vacation. Do you like that movie?
I do.
Yeah.
What's not to like about it, right?
Oh, I know. I was just thinking through all the great lines of that. Do you have a favorite line from that movie or anything? Because I love the. Are you serious, Clark? I see that on shirts all the time, stuff like that. Do people try to quote movies to you?
Usually Elf gets quoted to me.
Like Santa, I know him, or
That one I hear a
you
lot.
Smell like beef
Well,
and cheese.
I will say
or-
this. I work really hard not to smell like beef and cheese.
Right.
I keep some peppermint.
yeah.
I keep some try to make sure that my breath doesn't stink, and that when people come up that I smell truly like the North Pole. So work really hard about that.
That's awesome. Well, let's get to know the man behind the Santa.
All right.
Shall we? We've been friends for quite some time.
Yeah.
I don't want to give out a date number because that's probably going to be embarrassing for me.
Yeah.
You're still young, but let's start from kind of the beginning. Your name is really not Santa.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about who's behind
So
Santa.
my Santa, I guess, could be my AKA, right?
Yeah.
My real name is Scott Windham. I am originally from Odessa,
Yeah.
born and raised. And back in '98, I packed my bags and moved to the East Coast. Went off to college on the East Coast, and was never coming back to West Texas. Right, like I was one of
Never
those.
say
kids.
that.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
never say that.
I was one of those kids. It's 1998. I packed my bags. I moved to the East Coast. I go to college at Liberty University out in Virginia.
Yep.
Go Flames.
Yep.
See you at the Fiesta Bowl.
They're
you know?
playing
Playing
New
Oregon.
Year's 6, right?
Yeah, New Year's 6.
Yeah.
First time in program history, first time in school history. I'd love to talk about that here in a minute.
Yeah.
A little more, because had some great experiences there and at Liberty in my undergrad days. And met my wife there. And then we got married. I have a background in performance and theater and that type of thing. So we actually got married, moved to New York City. And we're in yeah. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't know that part.
Yeah, we were in New York for a few years.
Yeah.
Worked a little bit professionally, but as any actor, did a lot of side gigs and a lot of that kind of thing. And then took a job working at a theater actually in Tennessee, in East Tennessee.
Okay.
And we're down in East Tennessee for a while. Started working at a church down there. And we're there for, 4 years or so.
Okay.
And then had an opportunity to come back to Odessa. My wife and I had our first child. She was pregnant with our second. And just an opportunity that we were like, okay, this is a door opening. And so we came back home, and I think that's when you and I reconnected,
Right.
And I was on staff at Crossroads Fellowship here in Odessa for about 4 years.
Yeah.
And then went to work with the family business for a while. I'm kind of just giving you an overview, Jay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
anytime you want me
The
to.
elevator pitch.
Yeah, was there for a while. And then my wife and I actually adopted our third child.
Yeah.
He's adopted from Ethiopia. We can dive into that a little more here in a minute. But and then the last few years, we started a business called Inkline Designs. We've got that going, and then we also got this Santa thing that I do called Scott Santa and Company that has kind of grown into
It's huge.
more than
Huge.
just me anymore.
How many Santas do you have now?
So I have 4 Santas that are kind of under my umbrella, 5 with myself that are that work directly with me, allow me to book for them, and they're kind of my contract Santas. And then I have another 4 or 5 that I contract out with that they kind of have their own suits and they do their own thing, and then they fill in when I have opportunities for them to fill in.
Now, there's a lot there for us to unpack.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
I
want
just
to
gonna give
unpack
you a
on a
lot.
few of those.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Liberty.
Yeah.
So your degree was in theater?
So back
it, or-
then, Liberty did not have a theater major, a theater degree.
Right.
And so I actually majored in English.
Which is important.
Which is important.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very important. I was an English major with an emphasis in the dramatic arts, or really dramatic literature. And so did a lot of time studying a lot of musical theater as well as Shakespeare and all of those type of things. And so have a lot of history in that. I minored in vocal performance. You had Santa singing a while ago, and so I had a minor in vocal performance as well as a minor in French. But don't ask me to do anything with it because I have not spoken French in about a decade, and maybe even more than that. Never was
singing
truly
French
fluent.
for me?
Yeah, I can say like I don't know.
Yeah.
J'étudie pour 3 ans en l'école et pour that's about it. Like I studied
whatever you
French
just
for 3
said.
years, and that
Sounded
was
great.
about it. Yeah, it was boring. Like that's about all I can say.
Yeah.
But yeah, so spent some time at Liberty. I think the thing, Jay, that I love about Liberty is that Liberty is the realization of a great vision, right? And a
Right.
dream.
Right.
If you know anything about Liberty's history, it was started in 1971. So in comparison to a lot of these universities in America and around the world, it's a very young university.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
just 50,
Yeah.
52 years old now. I was there when Dr. Jerry Falwell was still alive and still around. He's the man that started it. And, there's a lot of controversy around him
Sure.
and a lot of opinions and things like that. I knew him personally because the student body was so small back then and I was so involved that I had a friendship with him. And so I knew him as a man. I didn't know him as this
Right.
caricature or this, politician, or not even politician, but this,
Yeah.
I knew him as a man. And he always treated me with great kindness and great respect. And I had the utmost respect for him. I think he really was the real deal in a lot of ways. I just
Right.
think he was a lightning rod in a lot of ways too. But
He was
used
larger than life, but
Truly
I think a lot
larger
of
than life.
people knew him as this big celebrity.
Right.
And you had the pleasure of knowing him as the everyday guy.
As the father, the grandfather,
Yeah,
the
and
friend, the pastor.
That's amazing that
It
you
was
got
it was
an opportunity to do that.
really amazing opportunity. He used to always call me Odessa because he knew me from
Good name.
coming out here. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact I can remember one time I was standing in the halls at Liberty waiting. I don't know. I was standing there talking to a friend.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I feel this like just somebody just takes their forearm and just lands it into
Really?
the middle of my back. And I turn around because I'm like, who just hit me that hard? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's always jacking around. And I turn around and there's Dr. Falwell. Oh, hey, Odessa,
Literally,
you
yeah.
know. And I was like, oh,
Hey, I know
Dr.
you.
Falwell.
Yeah.
Wasn't going to punch you in the face, But the thing, getting back to that point about,
Yeah.
the one thing, and I've had a lot of people ask me recently, they're like, man, isn't it exciting to see Liberty be so
Oh, yeah.
successful in
Yeah.
football here,
Undefeated.
this year, undefeated.
Yeah.
They're playing in the New Year's Six. They're going to be at the Fiesta Bowl against Oregon. Like they've got national recognition. And I think the cool thing about that, Jay, is that when I was a student there, that reality felt so far off, right? Because I can remember my first football game rolling into that stadium there on Liberty Mountain, and it being like a middle school game in West
Really?
Texas. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
man! Like it was super. I was kind of disappointed because I was like, oh, I'm going to college.
College football, yeah.
And it was like wah wah, But to see the impact and the change and everything that's happened over the last 20, 25 years at that in Lynchburg and at that campus, and Dr. Falwell always used to talk about his BHAG. And
Wait, say that again?
yeah, BHAG is what he called it. He BHAG, which stood for Big, Hairy, Audacious Goal, right?
Big BHAG.
Big, hairy, audacious
Okay,
goal.
got it.
And
Okay.
it's and he would stand up, several times throughout the semester in front of the entire student body, and he'd say, "What's your BHAG?"
What's your BHAG?
Because he would talk about how he remembered when Liberty University was just an idea, just
Right.
a thought in the 60s and early 70s.
Because he birthed it from the very beginning.
There was a
Yeah.
small group of them, and he
Yeah.
was kind of the lead voice, the lead visionary for that university. And I remember him talking about his BHAG, and he said, I dream of a day when Liberty University
Right.
is truly for evangelical Christians what Notre Dame is for Catholics and what BYU is for Mormons.
Right.
And he said, and I know there will come a day when the Crimson and Navy plays in South Bend
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
plays Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And for years now, I've told my wife, both of us,
Yeah.
graduated from Liberty. I've told her, I said, when that day happens, when Liberty plays Notre Dame,
You're there.
I'm there.
Yeah.
Like I don't, I don't know what's going to be going on, what's happening.
Right.
I said, but I'll have my Crimson and Navy on.
You'll be
and I'll
remembering
be there.
Dr. Falwell
Yeah.
for what he said.
And seeing that BHAG become a reality.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Now, you met your wife there,
I did.
and her name?
Her name is Nikki.
Nikki. Okay. And so how did y'all meet? Give me the short story on.
So short story.
Did she invite you? Did you invite her?
No, she transferred she was actually a student at San Diego State. And
Okay.
she transferred out to Liberty.
So she's a Cali girl.
She is. She's from Southern California originally.
Okay.
And yeah, worked at Disney back in the day.
Oh, yeah,
and,
yeah.
We were actually in an audition. This would have been our junior year of college, and
Okay.
she transferred out. And we were at an audition for a show that was happening at the theater program there. And I remember she was wearing this red, like, knit hoodie sweater and jeans.
Yeah.
And she walked up and introduced herself to everybody in the audition. And and then everybody always like, oh, do you remember her singing? Because my wife has an unbelievable
Yeah,
voice.
absolutely. I
And
heard it.
I said, I really don't remember her singing. I just remember her confidence and her presence.
Really? Wow.
And here was this girl who, and I knew a lot of people on campus. Like I just never met a stranger.
Yeah.
So I knew a lot, and especially someone that looked like Nikki. I would have known her. I would have seen
Yeah,
her. I
yeah.
would have recognized her. And so here she is. I'm like, this girl is new. I don't know who she is. And so the audition goes on, and I actually got released from the audition before she did because the director was so impressed with her.
Right.
So I went out in the hallway and I was like, I'm just gonna hang out.
Yeah.
And so I hung out until
See if you can meet her.
see if I could introduce
Yeah,
myself.
yeah.
And she comes out, and I think I said like 3 words. I was like, hey, good job. Like.
Way to go.
Way to go, like super confident, not Mr. Suave here. And
Did you say it in your Santa voice?
yeah. No, man, I just can remember being like,
That's awesome.
wow, this
Yeah.
girl's cool. I didn't know anything about her. I just thought, well, really, I just thought she was beautiful,
Yeah.
and she had this presence about her, and I was like, I got to get to know her. So we became friends, and that was actually kind of wild. It was right after that was September 11th, 2001.
Right.
And so, like,
Right.
I can remember moments throughout that season of seeing her and talking to her. And it took me, to be honest, Jay, I was pretty slow moving. It took me about 6 months to ask her out.
Whoa, 6 months of slow moving?
Yeah, well, for her it was, She finally told my friend, I told my buddy one time, I was like, man, I really like Nikki. And he's like, well, can I tell you something? He goes, yeah. I said, yeah. He goes, man, she thinks you're slow. And I was like, she thinks I'm slow. I was like, she thinks I'm stupid? And he was like, no, you are
You see me
stupid.
run? I mean, what is this?
But no, she thinks you're taking way too long to, ask her out.
Yeah.
And so I left his house that day, and I got on the phone, and next thing we knew, we were going on a date, and 2 years later we were getting married, and here we are 20 years later.
That's awesome. All right, you also mentioned that you were in ministry.
Yeah.
So tell me about that. What was God showing you in that stage, that season of your life?
Yeah, so I have kind of always, I'll say this. I think there's a lot of similarities, but when you say ministry, I'll use the word church work.
Okay,
Okay.
sure.
Because I think ministry is
It's a big phrase,
It's a
church
big,
work.
Yeah, and ministry we can have a ministry. What I'm doing is Santa is a ministry in a lot of
Yeah,
ways.
sure.
And so. But church work, I would say the church and theater have a lot of similarities.
Okay,
If
yeah.
you go back in history, there's kind of this ebb and flow and coming together and moving apart between the church and theater. If you really look back in theater history, while started back with Oedipus Rex and some of that
Right,
stuff, and
right.
even there's history of storytelling happening thousands of years ago, right? But if you go back into the Middle Ages and you see the everyman play, and
Okay, yeah.
the church used drama, used theater, storytelling to spread the gospel, right?
Right,
And
right.
so there's always kind of been this. So I say that to say that I've always kind of watched my time while working in the church, but also my time working in theater and that kind of thing.
Sure.
Very similar, a lot of similarities. But yeah, I had gone originally to Liberty to kind of study theology and that kind of thing, and then went a different route. And while we were in Tennessee working at a theater, we started attending a church, and that church actually hired me to become their worship director.
right.
And then was there for a few years, and then was asked to come here to Crossroads. And I was a student pastor here at Crossroads for about 4 years.
Yeah. In fact, my my oldest was under your leadership for a couple of years. I don't know if
Yeah,
you remember
I do.
Carolyn.
Yeah.
A couple of years there in her younger time. So, all right. So you were in ministry. You've gone work with the family business. You've done some things. But one thing I really want to hear is the adoption story of your
Sure.
son.
Sure.
Walk us through that.
So, Nikki was just on a podcast here recently. Actually, I don't know if you heard it. The Gin and Juice podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
And she talked about focused really a lot on that. And she speaks so eloquently. I kind of just fumble around. But, you know, Jay, both Nikki and I felt very strong about adoption, really even before we met each other.
Right.
We just, something in our spirits, something, stirred within us that adoption would be part of our story one day. And that conversation started when we were dating, and so we knew down the road at some point we would cross that bridge. We just didn't know what it would look like or when or the timeline. And so we were married for about 4 years, and then we got pregnant, or Nikki got pregnant with Lily, our oldest. Yeah, we. I mean,
Santa had something to do with that.
I had to. Yeah.
Let's keep going.
Let's
It's a
keep
family-friendly
going, 'cause
show.
I can't. Let's keep going. But Nikki got pregnant with Lily. Lily was born, and honestly, after Lily was born, we started looking into adoption agencies and, foreign versus domestic, fostering versus, private adoption. I mean, there's so much conversation out there when it comes to adoption. And then in the midst of us having those conversations, Nikki gets pregnant with our second, Anna.
Right.
So we were like, okay, hold up.
Pull the brakes.
Let's wait. Let's have this child, and then we'll. So Anna's born, and Jay, just a couple months after Anna was born, God was heavy on our hearts and was like, "Now's the time." And talk about BHAG, big hero autistic girls. People thought we were crazy because we started talking about adoption, and our youngest wasn't even a year old yet.
Right.
And
to some people, 2 is enough.
2 is enough.
Right? You've got your family. You're good.
You're good.
Right. Yeah.
But we felt very strongly like, hey, now's the time. Start the process.
Right.
So we did a bunch of research. We landed with an organization called America World Adoption. They're out of McLean, Virginia. They're kind of a middle-sized adoption agency. They do international adoption.
Right.
I had been over to Kenya earlier in 2010. And so my heart started beating really strongly for the continent of Africa.
Right.
At the time, adopting from Kenya was not really an option. You had to live over there for like a year or more.
Right.
And so we started looking at, okay, where could we do a foreign adoption from? And we found Ethiopia. Ethiopia was an open country at the time. And so we kind of went through that process. And at the time, Jay, I was a student pastor. We had 2 young babies. My wife was working a couple days a week at the Mother's Day out. Like, to say that our, checkbook was lean, like it was very lean,
Sure.
But we felt very strongly like God's calling us to this,
Yeah.
And so we started the process, filled out all the paperwork. If you know anything about adoption, it's mounds and mounds and mounds of paperwork.
Yeah.
So when we go to submit our application, the very first application, there's an application fee of, I believe it was $1,500 back then. Wow. And I was like, we don't have $1,500.
Where's that coming from?
Yeah, like I don't know what, And I remember saying to God, like, okay, God, you've led us all down this road. I know that you've led us down this. If this is truly what you're telling us to do and leading us, then you got to pay for it, because I'm like,
that money.
I don't have it, I was like, you got to pay for it, and
we need some coin here.
yeah, and so wild story, Jay, and I used to hear people tell stories like this in church and stuff, and I'd be like, well, whatever, okay, but this truly,
it's now your story.
This is my story, our story, and we were sitting there, and I told Nikki, I said, I don't know. I don't know where this $1,500 is going to come from because we don't have it. And I guess we're just not going to eat for the next 4 months or something. I don't know. About that time, we had been working with a CPA out of Tennessee who had been doing our taxes for the last few years since we've been in ministry and helping us figure all that out. And this was 2010 again.
Okay. Yeah.
And he calls and he goes, Scott, he said, we made a mistake back in 2008. He said, and we never claimed Lily when she was born as a child, it's in your taxes. He said, so I've gone back, I filed all the paperwork, and he said, I filed what was called an unclaimed child.
Okay.
Like, I don't know the jargon for it, but basically it was
Is it like unclaimed freight?
I I don't know about that, but it was basically like, hey,
Eh.
we forgot to claim this
Yeah,
child
we
on our
forgot it, yeah.
taxes, so it's an unclaimed child tax
Right.
break or what,
So
whatever.
here comes the money.
So he's like, I'm like, okay, great. He said, so you're gonna get some money. It'll just show up in your account because your account's already connected to it all. I'm so cool.
And it was
$1,500 and some change. It was enough not only to buy the envelope, but also the stamp.
Yeah,
Jay.
there
and
it
so,
is.
it was like, okay, God, all right,
He
you showed up.
provided.
He provided.
Yeah.
And he did that time and time and time and time again. Because multiple times throughout the journey, I was like, I don't know how we're going to pay for this,
Right.
and over, he just showed up, and not just showed up, but showed out. I mean, in this community, it's something that we talk about a lot, is this community, this West Texas community was so vital in bringing our son home. His name's
Sure.
Samuel,
Yeah.
which if you know anything about the Bible, Samuel, for this child I've prayed.
Yep.
And if you meet him, he's 100% boy and
Yep.
full of energy and
Bundle of joy.
bundle of joy. Plays football, baseball, basketball,
All the things.
All the things. He's
Yeah.
going nonstop, eating us out of house and home. But yeah, he came home with us. So we started that process in 2010.
Yeah.
And we did not get to bring him home until 2015.
Okay.
And so it was a 5-year
5 years.
adoption
Did
process.
you get to visit him? during
No,
that
so
5
he
years?
wasn't even born until
Okay.
2014.
Okay,
And so it's
yeah.
almost like you get in line,
Right.
and you're given a number, and then when your number
there.
comes up,
Yeah.
and they kind of just say, "Hey, this is the
Yeah.
child we've not found for you, but this is a child that was in the system."
Hey, it's
and
God ordained that
did.
from the very beginning.
he did, because if we had not started when we did,
Yeah.
Samuel wouldn't be home with us,
True.
So yeah, I mean, it's quite the journey. It is there's just been time and time and time again where we've seen God's hand in it, and there's been time and time again where we've seen the people of this community show up for our family,
Yeah.
and so it's really been I don't know. We could probably spend a couple hours just talking about that, Jay. Because
We could.
it's
we could do a whole season on that. Yeah.
because it's really pretty amazing to see all that. And I'll tell you this story. When we went to Ethiopia to bring him home, we were there for about a month, and I'm standing there and I'm holding Samuel, and he was a chunky little thing. He was about 18 months old at this time, and I'm holding him. And I see a little group of the ladies, that the caregivers at the transition home that he was living at the time, and they're kind of huddled together, and they keep looking over at us and then looking back, and they're laughing and giggling, and I finally call our guide over. I'm like, Champ, what are they laughing at? Because they're making me uncomfortable. Like,
Right.
there's
Something's
going
wrong.
on. So he goes over and he's talking to him. And you guys know something about in Ethiopia, you're on Ethiopian time, right? Like, nobody gets in a rush. Like, they're going to take their time.
Yeah.
So he's over there. Well, then he starts looking over. He starts laughing and talking with them. So finally I'm like,
What's up?
what's going on?
Yeah.
And he walks over and he goes, well, he said they've never had a dad come in with a
Really?
child, and the child and the dad favor so much.
Oh, that's what it
And that's
is.
it's the chubby cheeks.
the
That's what it
chubby
is,
cheeks,
And so
That's great.
just kind of a funny, Samuel, even though there's no, we don't share any blood DNA.
Right.
Like, he's
But that's
a perfect
okay.
fit for
Yeah.
our family, and he is 100% a Wyndham and 100%.
That's awesome.
He loves his Uncle Gary,
Yeah.
Gary. He
I-
loves
we
his
know
uncle.
Gary
Shout
very
out-
well.
Shout out to my
Yeah.
brother.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a big.
Fortunately and unfortunately.
yeah. We try not to
yeah.
let him act
Yeah.
like him too much, So
Yeah. Well, so you incredible story, and we've been friends for quite some time.
Yeah.
You've been throwing out some dates there, and so people can start figuring out how long we've known each
Yeah,
other.
yeah.
But just to kind of wrap things up, a couple of final questions. What's next for Scott Windham? I know you're doing the Scott and Santa. You've got a lot of people. You've got a business, Ink Lion.
Yeah.
You're doing some other things.
Yeah.
You love church work. I know ministry. You love singing, performing. What's next for Scott?
Well, I work with Amber and Oliver Gray over at Express Employment Professionals in Odessa as their business development manager, and so I work with them. So that's that's right there at the forefront. Nikki's kind of running Inkline and making all that happen. Scott Santa and Company is growing. If you're wanting to get into the Santa business, give us a call. We'll expand to Big Spring or Monahans, wherever. And I think just moving forward, I've got 3 kiddos. I've got they all have birthdays over the next like 6 weeks.
Yeah,
I've got a
I know the feeling.
16,
Yeah.
14, and 10-year-old. By this time,
16, 14, and 10.
16, 14, and 10. Every one of their birthdays are coming up in the next 6 weeks, and they'll be 16, 14, and 10. So, we're at that stage of life where decisions are being made for their futures and, where they want to go and what they want to do. And so we're there for that support and to encourage them and to challenge them and just kind of, hopefully push them towards their dreams, and help them accomplish those things. Kind of an odd place to be in life. I mean, you can probably tell
We're
me
fixing
more
to
about
be
that.
empty nesters.
Yeah, that's what Gayla was saying the
Yeah,
other
about
day.
6-7 months now we'll be empty nesters,
Yeah.
and I don't know what I'm going to do with myself.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to do without my kids.
Sure.
And we've got, Carolyn's been away for a while now.
Yeah.
Reese is still finishing up at Tech, and then Krista's going to graduate from high school and then go off to Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
It's going to go back to the way it was before kids.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure you'll
what do
find.
you want to be known for, Scott?
I love that you asked that question, and I think somebody said something to me one time about, we were told growing up to be nice, right? Be nice, be nice.
Yeah.
And I even, hey, are you on the nice list? And I've
Hey.
started when I talk to kids, I'm like, I say 2 things. I say, hey, I really want you to be nice and kind to each other. Because I think that there's a lot of things that happen under the vice of niceness,
Right.
that maybe aren't kind. And I think for me, I'd like to be known for my kindness. I'd like to be known that,
Sure.
I tell people the truth, but I do it in a kind way. I do it in a way that reflects that I believe that they are made in the image of an almighty God, that my religion doesn't get in the way of my relationships with people, and that I'm able to love big, and just truly, I know it feels so cliche, but just truly to be kind to others, And we live in a culture, not just West Texas, but in a world and in a culture that, there's a lot of talk about kindness, but not a lot of walk behind it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And so I just, and if I can spread a little joy in the meantime and a little laughter, but at the end of the day, when my life is over, I want people to know, or want people to say, man, he was always gentle. He was always kind. We always knew that he cared deeply.
Yeah. That's great. Well, you've been kind to my family for all these years, and especially my oldest when you were her student pastor and leader. And I appreciate our friendship. I appreciate who you are. I love that you went to Liberty.
Yeah.
My kids
Go Flames.
are part of the Liberty Online Academy
Yeah.
for high school, and it's changed a lot since you've been there. We were just up there a couple years ago, and it has. But I appreciate what you do. I love seeing you around town. I love seeing pictures of you, just the smile on your face when you're holding kids. So the kindness is part of who you are as Santa, but it's also part of who you are as Scott Windham, and I appreciate that. And I thank you so much for being here. I'm going to sign off because you haven't had a chance to eat your Chick-fil-A
Yeah, I've been nibbling
that
a little bit.
brought for you, Santa. I want you to have that.
Yeah.
So any last-minute words or anything you want to say to the kids before
No, I mean, I think at the end
you
of the day,
bring all the presents and stuff?
remember that this time of year is the time that we really can love big.
Yeah.
Reach out to those that are hurting. Reach out to those maybe that lost a loved one this year.
Yeah.
I mean, like the holidays are a lonely time for those. I talked to a friend today that lost her husband this year. And so, reach out to them, be kind, spread a little joy, spread a little happiness, and have a Merry Christmas.
That's awesome. Thank you again, Scott.
For sure.
Thank you for joining with us. And I just want to let you know, all you catwalkers that have been with us, this is our final episode of season 1. And we are excited about bringing you some new guests and new excitement, new fun. This next year, would you join us on season 2 as we kick that off on January the 11th? You guys have a great Christmas. We love you. Thank you for being a part of this journey with us. And we'll see you in 2024. As I always say, don't be sad it's over. Just be glad it happened. We will see you January the 11th.
Thank you for joining us. Drop us a line at media@perf-chem.com. Thanks to our title sponsor, Performance Chemical. How you get there matters to us.